Hello everyone, I'm Sarkos and today I'm going to do an post-commentary / explanation of my recent Big Blue Blob in-game time achievement speedrun. That's a mouthful. Basically I'm thinking I'm just gonna watch the run, record myself doing that and just explain a few things about what I do and why I do it, and maybe someone will think that's interesting. So without further ado, I'll just get into it. And yeah, the original run was almost 3 hours in real time, so I'll probably skip through most of it, to be honest. I'll just, show the parts that might be interesting, such as the beginning. I guess this is not very interesting, but I can take the time to explain why I'm playing on version 1.29. The reason for that is because a pretty big part of the strategy I use is to get the full Burgundian inheritance, since that gets you quite a lot of provinces essentially for free. And I guess you can do that on version 1.30 as well, but it's a bit more complicated, and I'm not sure if you can get it as early as in 1.29, maybe. The issue, of course, is that as France, while you always get a few provinces from the Indian Inheritance BI, to get all of them, you actually need to become the Holy Roman Emperor. And that's because usually the countries that can get the Burgundian inheritance is either the Holy Roman Emperor, Castile, or any HRE member with at least 4 provinces that have a personal union with Burgundy. Of course, as France, the only real option you have is to become the emperor yourself. So that is what I'll attempt to do. First thing I do here is I check the rivalries of the electors, because to increase my chances of getting elected, I want to ally with as many of them as possible and then increase relations and do a bunch of other stuff like that. And it's easier to get alliances with everyone if they're not like rivals with each other, most of them at least. And here I am moving my armies and my fleets around here to the coast, because I'm going to, in a moment, transport them over to Scotland in preparation for the war against England. I've seen a lot of guides that seem to recommend that you don't wait for the Surrender of Maine event, but rather declare a reconquest war immediately. But I'm not sure if that actually is a good idea, because if you wait for the Surrender of Maine event, you get to fight a defensive war where you get to call in all of your allies and England gets to call in no one. So that just makes it a lot easier. And also, since it's a defensive war, you get considerably less aggressive expansion when you take provinces. And aggressive expansion is one of the biggest limiting factors for this, achievement, Big Blue Blob. That is why it's a good idea to try to make use of the Surrender of Maine. I'm also getting an alliance with Scotland and military access so that I can put my troops there before and have some help from Scotland in the war. And I also got an alliance with Burgundy. The reason for that is actually like threefold. So one reason is that that way they get called into this war against England, which is helpful, and it also gives them a chance to conquer Calais from England, and that basically just means I get one extra province from the Burgundian inheritance later for no aggressive expansion. So that's just really good. The second reason is that if I remain allied to Burgundy for like the first few wars I do, then Burgundy gets less aggressive expansion from me, and there's less chance of them like joining a coalition against me. If they do that, it's not the end of the world, but it's kind of annoying, because then you might have to fight an entire coalition later when you fight Burgundy. So it's nice to be able to avoid that. And the third reason is that my chances to get Burgundian inheritance increases a lot if Burgundy does not have any royal marriages with a country that is eligible to get the inheritance. Because if they don't have any such royal marriages, then the inheritance has like a 50-50 chance to either go to the Holy Roman Emperor or to go to Castile. So that's basically the best odds that I can get. So by allying our Burgundy this early, it reduces the chance that they will get alliances with other countries that they might also get royal marriages with. Now I'm basically just waiting for the surrender of Maine to fire, which has a mean time to happen of 1 year. So statistically speaking, it should be happening around November 45, but of course there's some random variance, and I had a bit of bad luck in that regard, since it took close to the end of 46 before it actually fired. And the worst thing is that one of my starting generals died during that time, which is a real bummer because he has siege free and a siege specialist personality, general or general trait, I guess what you call it. So he's just really, really good at sieges, and he died before the war even started, which is terrible luck. Usually he can last through most of the run. So I almost considered starting over right there and then, but thankfully I decided against that. So yeah, the war started in late 1446, and the first thing I have to do here is just get the first fort up here in Northumberland, and see some suicidal English tags. Kind of funny. I like that. They always do that. Well, most of the time. Don't really have to watch this entire war. It's relatively straightforward. Take that fort, kill some English armies, occupy London. In the meantime, all of your allies, which includes most of the HRE electors, will take care of the stuff on the mainland. So once you have London, you can basically demand whatever you want. So that's nice. All right, here we can see the war goal that I'm aiming for. I'll at least pause here. You can see the cursor? I think you can. Yeah, so the provinces I'm taking here is not random. The most important ones arguably are this one up here and this one over here, because later I want to release Northumberland as a vassal from this province and Wales as a vassal from this one. And the reason for that is that next time I fight England, or technically the third time, you'll see, I can just return course to my vassals, Wales and Northumberland, which is through a reconquest war. And that is considerably less aggressive expansion than conquering those provinces directly. So that is a neat little trick, which I have learned from the guy that has the RTA world record in this category on speedrun.com, Mikkel Mar. I don't know if he invented that, but that's where I got it from, so shoutouts. And the other provinces are more or less just whatever I can get, mostly coastal provinces though. And also this one in Ireland is quite important, so that I can get a foothold there, fabricate some claims, fight Irish people, you know. And also Burgundy gets Calais, for reasons I mentioned earlier. So that is basically it. Quite a lot of war exhaustion here. I'm not entirely sure why. I think it was because I lost several naval battles due to recklessness. As I mentioned, I'm going to release some vassals first. So I will Northumberland and then also Wales. That, and the reason I took those two provinces in particular to release them from is because they're the lowest development provinces available that they have cores on, and it's cheaper to take the higher dev provinces through the reconquest war later in terms of aggressive expansion. So that's the reason for that. And the next war I'm going to be fighting is actually against the Irish minor Leinster, I don't know how to pronounce that, whatever. And the reason I do that is because they are allied to England, and currently, since I took basically 100% war score against England, I have a truce that is almost 15 years, which is just too damn long. But if I attack one of their allies in Ireland, they get called in, and then I force a white peace. Then the truce timer will be reset and will only be 5 years, which lets me declare a new reconquest war on them much sooner than I otherwise could. So that's a nice little trick that I also learned from Mikkel Mar's run. So again, shoutouts. Just declared war here. So yeah. Oh yeah, I got really good luck here because England mothballed both their forts, up here in the north as well as the one in Wales. So I can just get those in one single siege cycle, which is quite nice. But yeah, I'm not going to conquer anything for England in this war, so I just kind of try to beat them up and then get a white piece as soon as I can. As I realized later, I actually could get a white piece with England separately before with the rest of the alliance, which is actually better. That's what I've done here, because that way I can fight the Irish. I think there were 3 Irish miners in this war, and I think I end up conquering 2 of them. I'm just going through some diplomacy here with the electors to improve relations a bit faster, because of course the factors that contributes to getting elected is mostly relations. You want to get that to 200. Alliances increases. I can see a few, so we can pause a bit, look at that. So you have relations can go up to 200, alliances plus 30. If you can get a royal marriage, it's another plus 10. And of course, it's minus 50 because I'm not an HRE member. Just got to deal with that. Beyond that, diplomatic reputation makes a huge difference, as does legitimacy, and prestige also contributes a bit. So what I'm trying to do is, besides alliances and relations, I later on try to improve my diplomatic reputation, and you'll see how I do that later. And I also try to boost my prestige, which, mostly just by winning wars and conquering stuff, takes care of that for the most part. But yeah, I guess it's worth mentioning, because since it's a pretty important part of the run to become the Holy Roman Emperor. This war with the Irish miners is not terribly exciting. So yeah, I conquered 2 of them. I left the 3rd one alone because they were outside of coring range, I think, at the time. But yeah, they were besieging my mainland and turned into rebels when I annexed them, so I had to go back and deal with that. Not a big deal, a bit annoying. What's happening here is that Burgundy called me into a war against Provence, since I'm allied to them. And I don't really have much interest fighting wars where I'm not going to be conquering anything, but I also can't afford to decline any call to arms. It's just you lose too much prestige in Diplo rep, and I also want to keep the alliance with Burgundy a bit longer. So I just have to endure that. It is good though, because they end up conquering, I think, 2 provinces from Provence, and basically any stuff that Burgundy conquers before the inheritance just becomes free provinces for me, so I'm not really complaining much. Now I'm mostly waiting for the truce with England to end, and in the meantime I just casually annex a few more Irish miners, as you do. This is about the time the truce is up, so now I'm gonna declare a reconquest war, so that I can take back my vassals' cores for 25% of the normal aggressive expansion. Pretty nice. It was a bit tricky actually, because they had like 2 Irish allies, which I had to dedicate some troops to, and they were also allied to Brittany, so I also needed to keep some troops on the mainland. And since I failed to figure out a good way to build up my fleet, I guess I'm kind of restricted to moving my troops in peacetime. I simply can't really challenge most other countries' fleets at the moment, certainly not England's. So here I had just built a bunch of new troops, and they immediately get attacked, but fortunately they didn't get wiped. I think I'm getting a peace with Brittany here. I'm not taking anything from them, I just want them out of the war, get some more money. It's pretty nice. Is it here? Okay, cool. So now I have 99%. I already annexed their Irish allies, did I? Maybe. So I end up taking back the cores from my vassals, and since I still had some, shall we say, spare aggressive expansion to work with, I took a few more provinces, 2 of which I gave to Wales, even though they're not their cores, which is these 2, like Coventry and Shrewsbury, is that one? Yeah, and I did that because Wales has less like core development than Northumberland, but it's easier to time the integration of those 2 later if they have the same development. So I gave Wales a bit extra, so that way I can just basically start integrating them both at the same time, and then they'll both be done around the same time. See, is this point where I switch? Yeah, switch to Diplo advisor here, and I'm also later, when I get a bit more papal influence, I'll get the papal interaction to get you another +1 Diplo which is all for the in the service of securing the throne of the HRE. Speaking of the HRE, we see Burgundy calling me into yet another war against, among others, Austria and their allies. And I was kinda pissed off about this because I had actually planned on dropping my alliance with both Scotland and Burgundy right after the second war with England, because at that point I figured that it wasn't going to be much problem with aggressive expansion anymore. But I didn't have time to do that because immediately after I finished that war, Burgundy calls me into this one, and then I kind of have to help them out. I can't decline it because it's too costly in prestige and Diplo and it's also not such a good idea to let them lose a war before I'm the emperor, because if the Burgundian inheritance fires before I'm the emperor, then obviously I can't inherit them. So I kind of had to help them out here. But I wasn't happy about it, I'll tell you that. So this war is a bit of a drag. We just, fight people, besiege stuff, besiege more stuff, going for Vienna here. And I think it was around this point that I realized that I could probably take a white piece from this war. Yeah, I'm taking white piece here because I figured that at this point Burgundy can probably handle themselves, and now I can dissolve my alliance with them so that the truce has time to run out, because I'll need to fight them later to force the Burgundian inheritance to fire in a timely manner. So at this point, I'm mostly just waiting for the Austrian ruler to die so that I have a chance to claim the Holy Roman Empire. Obviously, that is quite RNG dependent. I think if I interpret the wiki right, that the Austrian ruler should have, on average, die about 30 years into the game based on their starting age, which would be around, I guess, 1474. I think they ended up dying a bit earlier than that, which is nice. So once again, since I don't have anything better to do, I might as well pass the time, annexing some Irish people. It's a pastime, I guess. In retrospect, I probably could have been a bit more aggressive during this time, since my aggressive expansion wasn't that terrible, and if I had conquered a few more things before I got the Burgundian inheritance, I could maybe have finished a bit earlier than I did, but that is how it is. But yeah, I was having some trouble getting them to vote for me, unfortunately, and it was quite close, if I recall. Finding some Irish, annexing some Irish. I think I ended up taking all of them except for Desmond there in the south. Just didn't need them in the end. And there we go. Yes, Holy Roman Emperor. So that was probably quite close. Like, had I not been elected there, then, you know, that would have been the end of it. Next step here is, of course, to fight Burgundy and make sure to get the Burgundian inheritance. And you can never, like, guarantee to get it early, but the chances of the event firing increases if Burgundy is at war and have negative war score, and the chance increases up to minus 75%. So the more you beat them down, the faster you will get the inheritance on average. So it can still take, I think the mean time to happen is still going to be like between 5 and 10 years, even when you have more than 75 war score on them. So the chance never gets like super good, but it's good enough, I think. It's gonna do a little slideshow highlights, I guess. Not really. So I got quite lucky though. I think, like I said, even in the best case scenario, the mean time to happen for the inheritance is like 5 years. But I still managed to get, there we go, yeah. Here the inheritance triggered and I got it, yeah. So like I said earlier, if Burgundy doesn't have a royal marriage with anyone that's eligible for the inheritance, then it's a 50-50 chance between the Holy Roman Emperor and Castile. So you can never really get the odds better than that unless you like destroy Castile, but that's not really, I don't think that's feasible in a big blue blob run. I still am short, I think 15 provinces at this point. So my plan is to take 10 provinces from Scotland, and then the remaining 5 will be those cores that I still have, that England still has. And I'm taking those last because obviously I don't have to wait for them to core. Whereas the provinces I take from Scotland here, it's going to take a few years before they are core provinces. So in the meantime, I'll be fighting England. And here I kind of messed up a bit. I should have put some troops in Ireland before. I thought that, you know, that's not a problem, whatever, you know, if they go and occupy Ireland, doesn't matter. Then I realized, of course, that I still don't have a fleet worth, you know, that can really fight. So they actually blocked the strait there, and I couldn't really get over there. And oh yeah, I started integrating Northumberland and Wales after I became emperor, so that finished up as well. So I tried to transport troops over, but their fleets caught my fleet, and that's how that went. These are the provinces I ended up taking from Scotland, 10 of them, but I had to actually get over to Ireland first. I think I managed to sneak past when their fleets were away. Yeah, right here. These 4,000. So they got over, and I managed to take back a few provinces there. Or like one. Yeah, now the war is over, whatever. So now, basically it's just a matter of waiting for those provinces to finish coring, and in the meantime, make sure to take the last 5 cores from England. And, you know, as long as I manage to win that war before the provinces in Scotland finishes coring, then it doesn't waste any time. Yeah, at this point England is not a very formidable foe, so this war isn't exactly difficult. In fact, the rebels put up a better fight than their royal army. I guess that's what you want to see when you play France. Can't play France unless you beat down England, and vice versa, I suppose. Oh yeah, wait, hold on, I need to go back a bit. It's kind of funny because I was really close to becoming bankrupt because I wasn't paying attention, and it would have, if I had become bankrupt, then I would have it would have instantly cancelled all the coring progress. So you can see in the notifications up there that I'm close to bankruptcy, but I didn't see it, so I just kept going, you know, no problem, I'll just wait, beseech London, what could go wrong? And then I think it's around here that I realized, so it's February, and I would have gone bankrupt in March, so I caught it like really in the last second. And I was kind of happy that I did that, because it's really not a problem. I don't really need as many armies as I had, so I delete quite a few of them, and also reduce fleet maintenance, war taxes, and debase currency. You don't want to debase currency until the very end, since corruption increases coring time. But once you have started coring provinces, then it doesn't matter anymore. So I could just debase all the currency in the world, and at that point it really wasn't a problem anymore. But yeah, that could have been very bad. There we go. Yeah. So yeah, a bit of extra money as well for safety, I guess. But it's really only the provinces that matter. I have 100 provinces at this point, but you need to be cores before you fulfill the achievement. So it's just a matter of waiting now. I think the strategy, I mean, roughly to use the Burgundian inheritance is the way to go, because it's kind of hard to argue with getting like 20 plus provinces for free. That being said, I could have played this more aggressively, definitely. I was playing it a bit safe because I just wanted to get it to work once. But if you want to improve it, you could definitely conquer. You could probably have conquered Scotland and everything by the time that the inheritance fired, in which case I could have gotten this like a few years earlier at least. Or, I mean, now I ended up not even going to Scandinavia, which is what you usually do in Big Blue Blob. But if I had, then you could maybe have got everything done even sooner than that. Anyway, 29 of December 1476, which is like 32 years, 1 month, and 18 days, I think. Anyway, that's about it. So thank you for watching. If you watched, good night or good day. I'm just gonna